Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage. I'm Joe Chambers. Our first guest tonight is JI Allison, the drummer from the Crickets. When we come back, JI Allison. Okay, JI.
Hey, Joe.
How you doing?
Good.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So, one thing that we want to do on the show is we want to talk about things that everybody would be interested in, but really geared toward more musicians. So, every musician, every drummer is going to want to know what kind of drums you prefer, what did you start out with, how did you get started? So, let's just start with that. How did you get started? What made you want to be a musician?
I went to a football game when I was probably in the 5th or 6th grade, and I wanted to play the bass drum. And so I went to the band director in elementary school, like in Plainview, Texas, and he had me like pat my foot and go boom, boom. He said, "You'll do." And so my folks ordered me a drum from Sears and Roebuck. Then I played that and then I played in junior high school, and then I played in high school, and I played in Texas Tech band, marching band, in the marching band and the concert band, and sometime in junior high school I took drum lessons, which didn't hurt me a bit, but I really enjoyed the whole deal, and I went to Tech for 14 weeks.
What kind of drums did they get you?
I don't think the Sears and Roebuck had one. The first trap set, they call them, was a Slingerland, and of course it was used, and the guy had lights in the tom-toms, and the bass drum, every time you hit it, it had a Hawaiian scene on it, it'd light up purple.
That's pretty cool.
But the only problem with that is when you light a light bulb in a drum, it goes bonk, 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 bonk. It gets higher and higher.
Because the heat?
The heat from the light bulb. But after that, Buddy and Don Guest, not Buddy Holly and Don Guest, and I went on a tour, which is why I only got 14 weeks of Texas Tech in. A guy hired us for the backup band for George Jones and Cowboy Copas and Hank Lachlan. You know, it was one of those cowboy tours or country music tours with like 10 people on it, and Justin Tubb. And,
what year was that?
56. And so I couldn't continue college and do that too. And everybody was really happy except my mom and dad since I quit college. But then we got $10 a day on that tour a piece, and all expenses were paid. And it was a 14-day tour all over the South. And you know, when I got home, I had $140, so I went and...
That was a lot of money, though.
Wow. And I went to Delahunty's music store and bought myself a set of Premier drums. And after that, I had Ludwig, and then after I made a little money and didn't need anything, then I started endorsing Ludwig, and they gave me all that stuff when I didn't particularly need it. But I prefer Ludwig; they're nice people, and I got a lot. Like I got a set of 75th anniversary set. They're like mahogany with eagles engraved in them. But
Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers said that it's kind of the same thing, except he stole. He had to go to the music store and steal a drum. He said, "Now I'm a star, they give them to me."
Yeah.
He said, "So I'm the Robin Hood of rock. I give them to my friends who can't afford them now." But so, was there a special sizes that you preferred on the drums, or did you just get whatever you could get?
Well, I didn't know one size from another, and I'm not really a connoisseur of drums. Like after. I always wanted to have my own drums wherever I went. Like we went to Sonny Curtis and Joe B. Malden. I went to England with the Earleys in 1960, and I didn't take any drums with me. I just played whatever was there. And we were in England in 1958. A fella from Premier came to some of the shows, and they made me a set, which is in the Musicians Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And anyway, I didn't know what to order. I said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'd like a tom, and I'd like 2 big toms on the floor, like for Bo Diddley, playing Bo Diddley or something." So they made those for me, and anyway, that's what I played. Till I Kissed You, the Everly Brothers, bloom, bloom, on those two drums.
Which a lot of people refer to. Drummers were wondering how they do that. You know, what size drums are those? And
Yeah.
heard a lot of drummers actually bring that song up.
Well, that's great. That's a compliment. The Everly Brothers did the Prairie Como show sometime in that period, and I guess it's probably 59 or 60 when that record came out, and they said, drummer can't do that, so they did it on the timpanis. Drummer probably didn't have tom-toms. And sometime or the other, when I saw Everly Brothers documentary or something, Chet Atkins said that was the first time he saw that kind of rig in the studio. You know, everybody sort of just played. You know, they didn't care much for drums in the old days.
The Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum has been celebrating the men and women who make the music of our lives since 2006. The Musicians Hall of Fame is the one and only museum in the world that honors the talented musicians who played on the greatest recordings of all time.
It's a music city, huh? It's, I mean, where else are you going to get the cats, all the cats that are in this room?
The Grammy Museum Gallery at the Musicians Hall of Fame is an interactive facility that allows guests to explore the process of making a recording. Take drum lessons with Ringo Starr. Sing on stage with Ray Charles. Write a song with Desmond Child. Rap with Nelly. Or be Garth Brooks in our recording studio experience. Located in the heart of downtown Nashville, in the first floor of the historic Nashville Municipal Auditorium. Come see what you've heard at the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum.
Hi, I'm Tyler Rudesheim, Director of Events at the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum. Located within the historic Nashville Municipal Auditorium, the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum is one of the most unique spaces in downtown Nashville, offering a versatile environment that caters to events of all sizes. Your guests will love this truly Nashville experience. We specialize in corporate dinners, music industry events, receptions, and more. Contact me today to book your next event.
With you guys, there was a really heartfelt, it was passionate, and it was connected to something that, as we know, it was more than meaningful, which played so well for us as young blues musicians, just aspiring. But we already had like a little bit of, and I'm looking at it, a kickstart, and I'm realizing there's a definite connect with you. You can't mess around and show off playing blues. A lot of people sort of did, and some of it was fun, and it mutated into something different. We were in our own little way trying to just emulate as best as we could. If you mess with it, you screw it up.
Oh, yeah,
which is like later on for blues playing, it was so important. Like Peter Green, who formed Fleetwood Mac, John McVie, he would literally be on his knees, the bass player in Fleetwood Mac, if he was standing here with me. You go to anyone like Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, Paul McCartney, I mean, you can go on forever as to where they drew, you know, all things you've heard before, and I'm just somewhere in the queue with musicians that I know.
That's too nice.
No, but hey, it's always love. You know, in our world we get some of that too. But there's always a connect to where it comes from. You must have met Paul from the Beatles. And
yeah, he told me one time it wasn't for the Crickets, there wouldn't be any Beatles, which was
there
nice
you go.
compliment.
I remember sitting years back when life was a party, and I was sitting at Ringo's house, who I knew a little bit back in the day, and he suddenly turned around because I was fairly active and with Fleetwood Mac, and he said, "What am I doing?" He's enjoying life, you know, and well, God knows, one of the Beatles. He said, "Mick, it suddenly dawned on me, I don't have a drum kit in my house." He would love that, and of course John this afternoon is going to be full of regret that he wasn't here. It's such a pleasure to be meeting and talking to you.
Oh,
it is unbelievable pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
like one thing I always wanted to ask Chet, and originally we were going to do this show in 1997, and I'd asked Chet. I said, would you do this show? It wasn't called Musicians Hall of Fame then because there was no Musicians Hall of Fame. I just thought it'd be cool that when I had the guitar shops to do something that musicians would enjoy seeing, and as well as regular people, And so one of the things I wanted to ask Chet was, how did it feel seeing the Beatles playing a Chet Atkins, guitar on the Ed Sullivan Show, and then how many people were influenced and basically bought Gretsch guitars for that reason? First you, and then the Beatles. And do you ever thought about how many drummers that you've influenced because you were like, when you guys were inducted to the Musicians Hall of Fame in '08, I think it was, and Keith Richards came in and said, if it weren't for you guys, there probably wouldn't have been a Beatles, and there definitely wouldn't have been a Rolling Stones.
Yeah, that was mighty nice. It's sort of embarrassing.
Hey, nice to be back in Nashville, ladies and gentlemen. How many are left? I don't know. But look, it's my job and my honor, actually, to try and tell you something about some guys that I don't know if many Americans actually know the effect that these guys behind me had in England and in Europe, because you're Americans and you know what you're like, And, but these are the guys. Without these guys, you probably wouldn't have the Beatles. You certainly wouldn't have had the Stones, It was the idea of this band, this bunch of musicians that actually wrote them, sung them, recorded them, put them out. This idea of a unit that could actually operate together, that actually turned us all on. It was, without them, like I say, that we'd be nowhere. They were the whole idea, probably the first global, It spreads and it goes around, but probably the whole idea of any of us anywhere else was sprung from the idea of these guys from Lubbock. And you're going, where? and it's funny how things can spring from out of nowhere, and I know I did. But you see, I couldn't have sprung if these guys hadn't have sprung in the first place. So, I mean, without really much further ado, I'd really like to, my joy and honor to induct the Crickets into this Musical Hall of Fame.
You're so nice.
But I don't think they said that just to be nice. I mean, that,
Well, Paul McCartney told us that one time, wasn't for the Crickets, it wouldn't be any Beatles. Of course, he didn't give me any money.
I was going to say, you didn't get paid enough, if that's the case,
It's really funny because back when we first started, we were on the road, I think it was a 17-week tour, and we had like 4 days off during the whole thing, and rode, and there was like 20 acts, or maybe 22. It varied because some of the people on the show had better gigs, and then they'd come back and work on that show. But it's 2 buses carrying, except for Fats Domino and Chuck Berry, and they had their own rides. Anyway, it was great, all those people, and I sure learned a lot from those guys. Like Tanu was Fats Domino's drummer, and Little Richard's drummer named Charles Connors. He was in The Girl Can't Help It.
Yeah.
And which I think we saw like 10 or 12 times probably.
You took my question. I was going to say, who did you listen to? Who influenced you? But there you go, right?
Well, like in school, I heard on the radio, and I think I had a couple of Gene Krupa records. I was pretty impressed with them. Of course, Brady Rich was playing, and then I got into rock and roll about in high school. And
well, So when you say rock and roll, who did you consider rock and roll? Because you kind of were in the genesis of it, weren't you?
I guess it was country. It wasn't country. There's a lot of country music. There's a lot of it good. Like Hank Williams was big, and the pop music. And then started playing stuff. We started listening to Gatemouth Brown and some people in Shreveport, Louisiana. It was a high watt station or high watt something, but you could hear it late at night in Lubbock. And they're playing like Rock With Me Henry and Fats Domino and Bill Haley, of course, that was rock and roll, I thought. But we liked all that stuff. Buddies, I sort of we'd been friends before, but he came and joined. I was playing with a country band, and he'd sit in and play that sort of stuff. But Little Richard and Fats Domino. First record I bought was Going to the River, Fats Domino record.
That was your first record?
Mm-hmm.
You know, since you mentioned Paul McCartney, do you know what his first record that he bought was?
Mm-mm.
Bebop Balula.
Mm.
Recorded here in Nashville, Quonset Hut. Hey, we're going to be right back. We're going to talk about a really, really famous song. Just a second.
The Cabaret is now open for a new season with shows all the way through 2019. Call now at 615-327-4630 or go online to RayStevensCabaret.com. Come see me here at the Cabaret in Nashville in 2019.
Hi, I'm Tyler Rudesheim, Director of Events at the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum. Located within the historic Nashville Municipal Auditorium, the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum is one of the most unique spaces in downtown Nashville, offering a versatile environment that caters to events of all sizes. Your guests will love this truly Nashville experience. We specialize in corporate dinners, music industry events, receptions, and more. Contact me today to book your next event.
Welcome back, Musicians Hall of Fame with JI Allison. JI, one of the biggest pop rock records of all time was Peggy Sue. It's Peggy Sue. And you got a great story with that. I want you to tell the story. I don't want to say any more about it.
Well, Buddy and I were riding around in his 55 Oldsmobile, and we usually had a guitar in the car, and I couldn't play a lick at the time. But anyway, he had a song story called Cindy Lou. It was sort of what they called a cha-cha beat or a rumba beat time. If you knew Cindy Lou, then you'd know why I feel blue without Cindy. And I had dated a girl in high school named Peggy Sue, and she moved to California. But anyway, she didn't ever like me much. And she got to where she hated me, but anyway, she passed away a while back, and I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I talked Buddy into changing it to Peggy Sue and doing a paradiddles, and so we changed it. And
you got that from Bo Diddley, right?
No, that was not Fade Away. This was just paradiddles, like Bo Diddley. Not Fade Away, but we heard that on the way to town today by the Stones. Sure did a good record of it.
Yeah.
And anyway, we changed it to Peggy Sue. In those days, we didn't have a producer. I mean, Norman Petty was at his studio and recorded it, but we sort of just played it and he recorded it, and that was it. But anyway, I had to go out in the entryway to the studio, because I mean that was pretty loud, the drums like that, and it was eating up everything else, the vocal and the bass and the guitar even. But anyway, we did it once, and I didn't get it right, and I flustered in the middle, but he said, "Okay, don't get it this time. It's Cindy Lou again." I said, "Oh man!" So we got it the second time, and I loved recording those days because you played it and nobody mixed it in the fix.
Yeah, right.
And how you played it, if it got too loud or too soft, that's okay. If you write a song, even if it goes slower and faster, that's the way you wrote it. And in my case, if I write a song and it's out of tune, the way I wrote it.
Yeah.
'Cause that's the way I sing. In fact, when we did the Ed Sullivan show the first time, we had to sign up with AFTRA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like AFTRA if it's enough to get in, but we got $1,000 for doing it. And of course, the agency and the management got 20%, so we got $800 and said, well, you got to be an AFTRA and that'll be $800. So they took it. And but anyway, it's a singers union. And anyway, I sing so good, as a matter of fact, that I get $100 a month pension.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's how good.
The Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum has been celebrating the men and women who make the music of our lives since 2006. The Musicians Hall of Fame is the one and only museum in the world that honors the talented musicians who played on the greatest recordings of all time.
It's a music city, huh? It's, I mean, where else are you going to get the cats, all the cats that are in this room?
The Grammy Museum Gallery at the Musicians Hall of Fame is an interactive facility that allows guests to explore the process of making a recording. Take drum lessons with Ringo Starr. Sing on stage with Ray Charles. Write a song with Desmond Child. Rap with Nelly. Or be Garth Brooks in our recording studio experience. Located in the heart of downtown Nashville, in the first floor of the historic Nashville Municipal Auditorium. Come see what you've heard at the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum.
Anyway, I loved all those guys drumming. Earl Palmer he played on a lot of Fat Stone and Little Richard stuff in New Orleans.
Yeah,
and
he was Hal Blaine gives him a lot of credit too, because he's actually got Hal Blaine, the real famous studio drummer in L.A. Played on, for those who don't know, played on Beach Boys and Mamas and Papas and everything. And Earl, he gives him credit for getting him started in the recording business.
Yeah, I played a lot with Earl. Was good friends with him. In fact, I went in the Air Force Reserve in 1961, and Earl liked my cymbals better than he liked his, so I just left them with him for 6 months, and I was in the Air Force Reserve.
You get them back?
Yeah, I did.
So, what people are going to want to know, to hear from you, what happened, as far as Buddy Holly and the Crickets? How did that go apart, and was it coming back together at the end? And
it was coming back together, and I didn't really know it for a long time. But Sonny Curtis and Joe B and I were hanging out in Clovis, and nothing was happening.
Well, JI and Buddy were playing just the two of them down at the roller rink, and I think that's how they got so tight, just playing the sock hops down at the roller rink, and they played great together. And man, they could just almost feel what the other one's going to do next, And so they went over to Clovis and recorded "That'll Be the Day." We had done it in Nashville, but not nearly that good. And they recorded "That'll Be the Day," and they named themselves the Crickets. Norman said, "You guys need to be a group," and they liked insects, and so they started looking through the dictionary, and I think it was JI that came up with the Crickets, and then they became the Crickets.
And Sonny Curtis was an original member of the Crickets, right?
Well, he wasn't actually a member of the Crickets, but he played fiddle and guitar with Buddy and Bob Montgomery. He played with Buddy before I did. And
Buddy and Bob.
Buddy and Bob, and it's a country band. And Don Guest played steel guitar, and a fellow named Larry Welborn played slap bass. A good band. And I finally got in that band. But anyway, Buddy and I liked rock and roll better than all of the other ones actually. And but anyway, we started the Crickets in '56, I guess. And but anyway, it was all going great. And then I got married, didn't help a thing. Then Buddy got married, and every musician knows what happens then. Like, you're going to go on the road all the time, And so it just, and Buddy moved to New York, and Joe B and I were going to move with him.
When we split up, the agreement was when he wanted to stay in New York and JI and I wanted he wanted to go to New York, and JI and I wanted to stay down in Texas. So the agreement was that JI and I would work as the Crickets, and Buddy would work as Buddy Holly. And then if we ever got uncomfortable with that and wanted to get back together, all it took was a phone call. And so the night Buddy was killed, JI and I were trying to call him from Lubbock. And we had called ahead to, I think, Fargo, North Dakota, or wherever he was going to be the next night, and left a message at the next venue he was going to play to have him call us when he got there.
And all of a sudden, you know, like, I think Peggy Sue didn't particularly want to move to New York, and it just didn't feel right. But after we split up, it sure didn't feel right because there wasn't anything happening. But we tried to call Buddy. Actually, he was playing in Clear Lake, Iowa, and we tried to call him from there, and he had already left or something. There was one payphone backstage, I think. But Waylon Jennings told me, I think about 78, he told me that Buddy said, hey man, you know, I don't really like the way this is going. I want to get JI and Joe B back. And Waylon said, well, you know, I'm playing bass. And Buddy said, yeah, but not very good. And he said, so we're going to go to England again, because England was always really good to us. And Buddy said, you don't need to play bass, man. You're a good singer, and you're going to open the show singing. And get JI and Joe B, and we'll do a tour like that. And I thought, wow, it's really fun to hear that, because that's the way I felt. And you know, Buddy's my best friend, and it's hard, you know, after all we'd been through, and just stop it is pretty miserable.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But that's what
when
happened.
You're in a band like that, it kind of becomes your identity, you know. And then everybody you know always has the band, you know, and you're kind of,
yeah.
You know? So I guess naming Peggy Sue worked, and you got married to Peggy Sue.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
And we were married for 9 years. I think we were together about 3 months of that 9 years. No, it's more than that, but I mean, she was a nice lady and nice folks, and that was just it's hard to be rock and roll and stay home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing this really like winging it, so I'm going to guess that we've about hit that half hour that we're going to be allotted for this show.
Yeah.
But I just want to tell you how much I appreciate it and doing this. And you know, when we first opened the museum, it was kind of hard to get people to go with somebody that didn't have any track record doing the museums, you know. And you were I've told this a lot of times, not you, but because you knew, but it meant a lot to me that you wanted to put your drums in there, and you actually, instead of making me feel like you're not worthy, you were like, I'm not worthy kind of acting, and I appreciate that because that meant a lot.
Well, man, I really appreciate having my drums here, and if anybody doesn't know about it, they need to come to the Musicians Hall of Fame, because it's my favorite museum of like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That means in Norwegian.
Well, hey, they're all good. I love them all, but
oh yeah, I do too. But this is my favorite.
Well, it is me too. But hey, I love you and I appreciate it a lot.
Well, thank you, Joe, and thanks for letting all my friends in free.
Hey, is any of your friends are our friends, you know, and so hope you guys come back and see us next week when we'll have somebody not as cool as JI, but they'll be cool.
Thank you, Joe. That's very nice.